Hi, I'm Georgia Cooke with ABI Research, and I'm here with Jeevithan Muttu from Motive to talk about global RCS integration. Thanks so much for being here. So, to get started, RCS has been a key focus in the US and to a lesser extent in Western Europe and Latin America. Could you speak to those regions of high adoption and why RCS has been such a focus there?
Hello, it's my pleasure to be here. The SMS, as we know today, is evolving. It's moving more towards a rich messaging format known as RCS. And more importantly, it's being adopted by both Apple side of the things as well as Android. So Google and other Android vendors have also adopted. So what that means is you got a wider interoperability that's now available with this RCS messaging across iPhones and Android devices. And most importantly, there's also security. So high level of security that's coming from end-to-end encryption of this messaging delivered from one device across to the other device. In terms of the adoption rate, we see today the RCS is available across the globe in many countries, but there's a slight shift. So the encrypted RCS with the full support from Apple requires end-to-end encryption, and that adoption is gradually increasing. It's starting off with North America and Western Europe and some aspects of Latin America, and we expect to see a wider adoption in the coming months.
That's really interesting. You mentioned those differences between Apple and Google, which do persist despite an industry-wide move towards the interoperable standard. And those persistent differences have created some interesting trends in adoption. For example, although there's strong support for RCS for Apple among carriers in the UK and Germany, in the UK only 62%, and in Germany only 65% of that support is capable of supporting ATP campaigns. With that in mind, could you touch on the importance of ATP capability for carriers?
Right. So let me first talk about the ATP support, which is called the business messaging, right? So this is where the revenue is, or additional revenue stream from an operator standpoint. So it's crucial that ATP support comes into RCS. So that's the ATP side of it. Secondly, in terms of the adoption of these from an operator standpoint, first, it has to come from that operator to the vendor relationship. So each operator has to have the right carrier bundle or the resource bundle from the OEMs. So when I say OEMs, I'm referring to the Apple, the Google, the Samsung, and so on. So that has to be integrated. And then secondly, the RCS as a service needs to be provisioned. And this is where a solution known as entitlement service needs to come into picture. It sits along your core, whether it's 5G or 4G core, and then it integrates into the operator backend, but it also integrates into the OEMs and also connects to the end user devices. So this sort of the entitlement server is a bridge that connects multiple pieces together to provide that end-to-end encryption, so all the messages are provisioned and flowing through a highly secure channel.
In terms of managing that integration of the entitlement server, one of the challenges we've been seeing is around integrating into an existing, very complex stack. Many operators are the result of years of mergers and acquisitions, and as a result, they have very complicated stacks. Is that the same feedback that you're getting?
Correct. So it is important that entitlement server is integrated fully with the operator backend, and it is able to provision the services on the devices. So there's a whole set of stages that the operator has to walk through, including having the integration done and then go through the certifications with Apple, for example, for the iOS devices, and then with on the Android side for the Android devices. So what that means is that you need to have that your legacy stacks or complex OSS BSS stack that needs to be integrated from a service provisioning perspective. What we are hearing from operators are two things: how do I get to market? How do I get this certified? And secondly, what's the cost? Right. So there are multiple ways an operator can go down in terms of getting RCS provisioned from an encryption RCS perspective. One is they can start off with an as a service. So it could be entitlement service as a service, or ES SaaS. They can run an entitlement in the cloud, or they can run it on-prem. So multiple options are available, but it comes down to a proven entitlement server solution that has the ability to scale, that has the ability to bring in functions and the flexibility to integrate into your backend on a timely manner. So multiple angles have to be considered, and the cost definitely needs to be considered as well before an operator can get the right entitlement vendor into the picture and get the services provisioned.
What would you consider a timely manner in terms of managing this integration? When should they be looking to start? How long will it take?
That's a very good question. So the Apple support for RCS came in Q4 last year, so that's 2024. So for example, from our side, we had the entitlement server support for RCS available and tested in Q1 timeframe. So having an entitlement server that's pre-certified, so to speak, and ready to go, I think that will cut down on the overall timeline. Nevertheless, you have to get it integrated with your backend, and you have to then go through the certification process. If you're launching on Apple, then go through the certification process with Apple. It will take anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks, and having the right solution, having it pre-certified and ready to onboard, and then the integration with your backend, all of those things needs to be considered, and obviously the cost on top of it, so that you are well prepared and ready to launch the service.
Obviously, geopolitical factors, a growing awareness about security amongst consumers, and increasing data privacy regulation are key drivers for this market. Could you touch more on why security is such a key topic right now and how RCS integration supports that?
Again, a very good question. Let's start from an SMS standpoint. SMS is known as a universal channel, right? Any mobile device that you get out there, it will receive SMS. Not just from a ATP standpoint, a business messaging standpoint, even for basic communications, SMS is known as a universal channel. But one of the difficulties or the pitfall on SMS has been it's not fully end-to-end encrypted. Then you see the emergence of OTT channels like WhatsApp and others, which comes with that end-to-end encryption angle or that picture in place. So that puts the SMS on a backseat. So operator trusted channel SMS does not have that end-to-end security. So this is where the evolution of SMS into RCS, the rich messaging. So it is rich. It competes directly from an OTT standpoint. It's conversational, but it's also now fully encrypted. So that puts, again, the trust back in the operator's hand. It's an operator channel trusted by the end users, whether you're receiving an OTP message or you're receiving a message from your utility company, right? So in many ways, it is continuing to evolve as a trusted channel with the full end-to-end security in place. So again, it's an advantage in multiple fronts, and we know that security is key. There's been a lot of noise out there in the media, and also from regulatory standpoint as well, that SMS as a whole have some issues from a security standpoint. So I believe RCS is going to change how we see things going forward and keep it again from trusted channel within the operators' tool sets of services that are offered.
Could you expand a little bit on those apps and potentially what the risks are to carriers if those supersede the position of the carrier of being the primary messaging service?
The primary messaging function, exactly as you touch, it's a service that's offered by operators, and it's important that they continue to do that. And just with any technology, this is an evolution, and technologies change over time, and it's important that operators adopt these technologies as they come in and go to market as the things evolve and bring the right solutions and the feature functions to their customers. And on top of that, then they turn around and provide that service to enterprises who want to reach their subscribers. And communication is key. As we know it, there are multiple ways in which an enterprise can reach out to the end subscribers or their customers, whether that's email, it could be phones, it could be multiple different mediums, including Apple apps that an enterprise might have. But this RCS, as it evolves, continues to have that. I want to touch back again on that trusted angle, right? So it continues to have that operator-provider trusted channel. And there's also another angle to RCS that we haven't talked about. Not every enterprise out there is going to be able to create an app, right? So that means they are going to rely on a channel to communicate to the end subscribers or their customers. And RCS could become that, what they call a super app, right? So you could have a fully branded channel or chat within your RCS, whether it is for marketing or campaign purposes, or to reach out to a technical support team. It will evolve into a super app, branded, verified, so the end users can trust and use that for communication.
Speaking of trust, carriers are in a really strong position to leverage a long-standing relationship where trust is already built. Could you touch more on how carriers can leverage that existing trust, particularly within the context of their more stringent regulatory landscape?
This is a fundamental shift here. Carriers are your connectivity providers. It is their domain, and they have been doing that for many decades now. So they need to provide that highly secure, always-on connectivity to the end users in a manner that is compliant and it is competitive in the market.
And we've spoken about the importance of security, but the entitlement service solves security issues beyond RCS encryption. Could you touch on some of the other ways that the Motive entitlement solution solves security challenges?
Multiple aspects. So RCS is one of the functions that entitlement server is utilized for. Traditional sense entitlement service is needed if you're looking at eSIM provisioning, eSIM activation, pairing of a secondary device, pairing your automotive to your mobile handset, managing the same profile across multiple devices. This is where entitlement server comes in. Also in the traditional sense related to iMessages or voice over Wi-Fi configuration and activation. Now RCS essentially is another service that entitlement server is utilized to providing. Another hot use case that's emerging right now is called SIM-based authentication or phone number validation. It allows some of the users or some of the audience here may have heard Kamara APIs, essentially enabling operators to monetize their network and their subscriber base. In order to authenticate any service that's actually coming into the operator network from an enterprise, to monetize the operator's network, they need to validate that. So that validation could happen in multiple ways. In order to validate and provide the service, what an entitlement server could be used for is to authenticate the user. So we can authenticate the users through what's called a SIM-based authentication behind the scenes, rather than sending an OTP message to the mobile device and having the end users validate through that. An entitlement can do a handshake directly through a secure manner behind the scenes in a full end-to-end secure manner, actually, cutting any kind of a middleman attack and provide that secure authentication so that end users are authenticated and they can start to utilize services. It could be whether you're logging into your banking application or you're logging into another app from a security standpoint. So that's the SIM-based authentication of phone number validation. There's also other services such as expanding your 5G or 4G coverage into the satellite side of the spectrum. So what's called the direct-to-device connectivity or NTN, non-terrestrial connectivity. An entitlement server could be utilized by operators to provide that satellite connectivity, to provision the devices to connect to satellite directly, and then to enable different applications level settings or service level settings such as messaging or connectivity, internet data connectivity. That level of provisioning of end user devices for satellite connectivity is also done through an entitlement server.
There's a very strong emphasis right now on managing that rapid deployment and getting deployed support in place. Can you touch on the eventual evolution and how to implement that integration strategically in order to position yourself to, in the future, be able to exploit the full range of solutions available?
There was a rush to get RCS provisioned and to get that service out of the way so that the service is available from an end user standpoint, but also operators are able to tap into that A2P revenue stream. So that's great. And you could even run a parallel entitlement server to get RCS completed. Secondly, the operators have to look at the long-term picture. Find an entitlement vendor that's trusted, globally scaled from availability of the services and trusted by multiple operators, but also scalable from number of devices, depending on your size as an operator. And then the robustness of the platform, it's key. It's a crucial service. It's a critical service from an operator standpoint. So stability and the robustness and the high availability, geo-redundancy of the platform is also critical. And most importantly, the agility in terms of continuing to stay on top of the GSMA standards, so the Apple specifications, and able to roll out new services and features, because we see this as an opportunity to monetize your 5G core. There's even the 5G on-demand slicing. That's also something an entitlement server can provide. So this is, again, coming down to how are you going to monetize your existing assets? And for that, pick the right entitlement server if you don't have one, and then work with the right choice so that you're set for the coming years.
Okay, thank you very much, Jeevithan. For a deeper dive on RCS integration, you can download our white paper.